Whew, done with all my homework now, so let me check my YouTube page, see how things are going. Might need to update my channel banner, but besides that, things are looking pretty good. Wait, what? Damn! 100,000 views on my Mario Rabbids Sparks of Hope video? Hold up, when did I even post that video? Bruh, how has it been that long since I made this video? Oh my god, bro, I gotta stop slacking. Well, it can't be that bad, right? When did my most recent video come out? You read the title and saw the thumbnail. Well, I've delayed this long enough. So throughout this list, I'll be ranking the sparks in order, but I'll also be dividing them into separate tiers, and since there is no tier maker for all the sparks, then I'll just have to divide the video into chapters. I'll be ranking all these sparks to their maximum level, being level 5. Also, please keep in mind that there are a ton of different ways to play this game, and that this is just a ranking of my personal opinion. If you disagree with my placements, please feel free to comment below why. Anyway, we've got 30 sparks to go, so let's just jump into C tier. To start off, I personally believe that the worst spark in the game is Electro Dash. The shock super effect is just okay in my opinion. While the damage can chain off enemies, the damage amount is very little. This spark obviously requires a dash to be useful, and not all characters have multiple dashes, so most dash sparks will be placed in C tier. While it does provide a 200% damage multiplier, grants immunity to the shock super effect, and all super effect damage is reduced by 40%, the other dash sparks do the same thing with their respective super effects, and those effects are just better in my opinion. Next up, Pyrogeddon. This rains down meteors with the burn super effect, which is trash! Who likes burn? It's legit garbage! If you like it...
What's wrong with you?
Anyway, each meteor does 680 damage, and just like Electro Dash, all super effect damage is reduced by 40%, and the burn super effect does not affect the heroes. The reason why burn is garbage though is because it's so random, and it can end up ruining an entire strategy. This effect alone places Pyrogeddon this low on the list. And speaking of the burn effect, Pyrostar is pretty much the same as Pyrogeddon, except there's no meteors and burn is applied to the weapon shots. The damage markiplier- wait, what? The damage multiplier is 160%, and this is decent overall. Electroid is literally the exact same thing as Pyrostar, just with the shock super effect applied instead of burn, and shock is just 1000 times better than burn anyway, so yeah, it goes above it. Electrogeddon is just the same thing as Pyrogeddon, but again with the shock super effect instead of burn. Following Electrogeddon is Zephyr Dash. This works just like Electro Dash, in which all dashes will deal 200% more damage, all super effect damage is reduced by 40%, and the super effect applied to the spark will grant the character that uses the spark immunity to that super effect, in which the effect on this spark is called Gust. It acts just like Push from Kingdom Battle, sending the characters away from you by having them roll on the ground. I consider this effect to be much better than Burn because even though the enemy's position is not totally predictable all the time, if there's walls in the arena, it's much easier to create strategies revolving around this effect. For example, pushing enemies away with this super effect can now put them into the line of sight of other characters, whereas Burn is just completely random and unpredictable. The final spark in C tier is Aqua Dash. It's the exact same as Electro Dash and Zephyr Dash, but the splash super effect is applied instead. It works just like Bounce from Kingdom Battle, and I put this right above Gust because there's usually less of a consequence if you mess up because the enemy will go flying over obstacles instead of getting bounced around by them. Now moving on to B tier. And I know y'all like seeing my beautiful face during these transitions. Beginning with Zephyr Hills. Kind of like Pyrogeddon, this is an area of effect- wait, did I say Zephyr Hills? Zephyr Quake works similarly to Pyrogeddon, as it is a large area of effect damage option. It casts 3 shockwaves that are applied with the Gust super effect, and each wave deals 283 damage for a total of 849 damage. Not only is the damage on this spark much higher than Pyrogeddon, but the Gust effect is also just way better than Burn, like I said previously. Oh yeah, and it also has this, just like every other spark. Aqua Quake is legit the exact same thing as Zephyr Quake, except with the splash super effect, which I like more, so yeah, it obviously goes above Zephyr Quake. Toxic Comet is our second spark that applies itself to weapons. It increases the damage done by 160% while applying the Ooze super effect. If I'm being honest, I'm not fully sure what the Ooze super effect does. It looks like it just grants extra damage over time, which is decently useful, but I'm not sure if it has any other uses to it. But that's all there is to Toxic Comet. For the second and final ooze-based spark, we have Toxic Wake. This is the exact same thing as Zephyr Quake and Aqua Quake, except with the ooze super effect. I placed this above those two because extra damage over time is usually more useful for an area of effect attack, whereas launching all the enemies away can have its own strategies for some players, but disadvantages for others. Rounding off the Gust and Splash super effects, we have 19 Zephyr Star and 18 Aquanox. These just apply the Gust and Splash super effects to weapon attacks. However, the reason I put these above Toxic Comet is because for some reason, they deal 165% more damage instead of 160. This might be because Ooze does more damage over time, but since this is a bigger multiplier, even though not by much, I'll still put them above Toxic Comet. Finally, something unique. Screech repels all enemies from the position of the character who activated it. This can be fairly useful for certain characters such as Luigi for example. Since his HP is pretty low, and his weapon is the strongest when further away from opponents, this spark is good when applied on him. However, for close range characters like Rabbids Mario, pushing the enemies further away would only be a detriment, unless he's really low on health or something. This spark also increases the chance of critical hits from weapons by 30%, which is a pretty good skill. It does feel kinda strange to put this spark along with the other sparks in B tier, but it is what it is. For the final spark in B tier, we have Gargantufan. Rabbid Kong makes a cameo and produces a shockwave that deals 1024 damage. He also increases the HP of the character who summoned him by 35%. A decent damage output with a good HP boost is enough for this spark to climb its way up to the top of B tier.
Now, on to the A tier.
I don't know why that was so dramatic. I hope I can make you guys laugh, by the way. Starting A tier off, we have Vamp Dash. Rabbid Luigi's dash was so good in Kingdom Battle that they just had to make a whole spark about it. If you don't know what the Vamp super effect is, it lets you heal a certain percentage of the damage you dealt to an enemy. Therefore, Vamp Dash heals 30% of the damage dealt through a dash attack, which is automatically set to deal 180 damage when the spark is applied. If a character needs a quick heal, this is a decent option. This spark also increases all movement ability damage by 35%, which is a nice stat boost. Vampastra finishes off the Vamp ability by having the Vamp super effect be applied to weapon-based attacks instead of dashes. Like Toxic Comet, the damage multiplier is 160%, and 30% of the damage dealt to the enemy will be healed back to the hero. Unless you apply Vamp Dash to characters with multiple dashes like Edge or Rabbid Peach, Vampastra is just a better healing option all around, especially with characters that have multi-hit attacks like Mario, Rabbid Peach, Rabbid Luigi, Rabbid Mario, etc. The chance for a critical hit also increases by 30%, which is nice as it makes it more likely that you'll heal more due to the higher damage output. Next up, we have the first of the 4 Bro, what? What am I saying? The first of the 4 enemy summoners is up, that being Scoper Master. The reason for this one being the worst of them all is that it has 1620 HP, which is pretty low. The Scoper can also only target one opponent at a time, which does not make it the most useful. However, its damage output is pretty useful. It fires 2 shots, each dealing 677 damage, totaling 13,000... What? Yo, 13,000? 1,354 damage. Don't get me wrong, this spark is not bad at all. I mean, it being an A tier and being number 13 out of 30 is solid. And having an extra character on your team to distract enemies is always a very good option. But the other 3 enemy summoning sparks are just better choices in my opinion. Mostly because the Scoper can just die so easily. Cryogeddon and Cryobolide are the last super effect sparks. They come with the Frostbite super effect, which is the best one in my opinion. This is because it freezes enemies, stopping them from moving and making them much more vulnerable to attacks. Like Electrogeddon and Pyrogeddon, when summoned, Cryogeddon rains down meteors over a specific area surrounding the hero. Each meteor carries the Frostbite effect and does 680 damage. Oh yeah, and this happens too. Cryobolide does this, pretty much just like every other elemental spark, except that tiny little difference in percentage. Following the Cryo Sparks is Squashette Master. This spawns a Squashette with 2030 HP, which is 410 more than the Scoper Master, so it's a decent enough upgrade. The Squashette's attacks are an AoE that deals 677 damage, and it has the Gust super effect applied to it. Gust can be either beneficial or detrimental to specific strategies, so it's neither a positive nor negative to this spark. But what is a positive is that the spark increases healing by 30%. Wild Claw Master is next up, and the reason that it's higher than Squashette Master is because the Wild Claw spawns in with 3250 HP, which is way better than 2030, especially because it'll be targeted quite often, due to its strong AoE attack dealing 2273 damage. It also reduces incoming physical damage by 35%, which is great. Glitter is a situational spark, but it usually works well in most situations, especially with Rabbid Mario and Rabbid Luigi. Pulling all the enemies towards yourself can be really good for taking them out together. The 30% increase to damage dealt by weapon-based attacks is also really beneficial. This spark won't work well with characters like Luigi and Rabbid Rosalina, but characters with multiple dashes and AoE attacks really benefit from using this spark. Exosphere is your basic defensive spark. Allies within range of the character who activated it take 55% less damage, which includes all damage from super effects. This also lasts for 2 turns, which is nice. It also increases all movement damage by 35%, which is cool too. While it is a basic defense option, getting more defense is never a bad thing. But as they say, the best defense is more offense, and that's why I'm placing Starburst above Exosphere. When activated, all allies within range will deal 60% more damage with both weapon and movement attacks. The incoming physical damage is also reduced by 35%. Both of these upgrades are awesome to have, and even though they only last for 1 turn, they push Starburst all the way to the top of A tier.
Now onto the final 5 sparks, all in S tier.
The 5th best spark in the game in my opinion is Oozer Master. Now I can hear the comments already.
Mr. Mantra, how dare you place Oozer Master all the way above Scoper Master? They have the same amount of HP, and it even deals less damage than the Scoper Master. This is just insulting. I can't even anymore. I'm disliking and reporting you for promoting terrorism.
Yes, while all of that is true, except for promoting terrorism, YouTube, that was a joke, please don't demonetize me. Oozer Master can silence and disarm enemies, which is incredibly useful. Since it can stop the enemies from shooting and using abilities, the Oozer's chances of staying alive are heavily increased. It also increases weapon-based attacks by 30%, which is really good. I mean, the fact that it stops enemies from shooting in the first place is what puts it in S tier. In 4th place is Regenesis. This is your basic healing spark. And this spark is why I placed Rabbid Peach in C tier on my ranking for the characters.
I got so many comments about that, and I just want you guys to please understand. I'm gonna love you till the very end.
Not only does this spark increase the hero's max HP by 35%, but it also regenerates 40% of their max HP at the start of a turn for 3 turns in a row. This spark is just incredible. A common strategy that you can use with Regenesis is to apply it and get into a group of a bunch of enemies. You can eliminate some of them, but not all of them, so you depend on the heal that it gives you at the start of the next turn. But the problem with this strategy is that if your HP is already low, then the enemies can just kill you too quickly. But with Ethering, this issue is resolved. While this does increase all movement damage by 35%, its main attribute is that it turns the character who activated it invisible for 2 turns. This works perfectly for close range characters like Rabbid Mario. Even though you're still vulnerable to damage and super effects, the fact that you cannot be targeted makes this spark incredibly versatile and fantastic. My runner-up is Reflector. The spark does this like a bunch of other sparks, but its main attribute is that it reflects 60% of the damage that an enemy deals to you back to the enemy itself. Not only is this a great defensive option, but it straight up just punishes the enemy for attacking you. This spark is amazing, but it is number 2 after all. So in my opinion, the best spark in Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope is Pulsar. While it does increase healing by 30%,
this spark allows you to do something that no character in Sparks of Hope or Kingdom Battle can do. Well, I mean, no character can reflect enemy damage or summon other enemies at will or turn invisible,
but this spark allows you to revive any characters within range. This is insanely useful, and it's not a bad revive either, as it brings back 70% of the character's max HP as well.
Almost every single spark on this list is situational or requires some strategy to be effectively used. but this one doesn't. As long as you're positioned well, this spark works in every scenario. Unless you're doing a no revive challenge or something like that.
And there's the tier list. Please remember that this is all just my opinion and you are freely welcome to express yours in the comments. If you're wondering why I did not mention cooldown times in this ranking, it's because 4 sparks have a cooldown time of 2 turns, 19 sparks have a cooldown of 3 turns, and 7 sparks have a cooldown of 4 turns. So there's honestly not a huge difference between them all. Okay, in all honesty, I kind of forgot, I'm sorry. Thank you so much for watching this video. Both of my Mario Rabbids videos have done very well, becoming the 2 most popular videos on my channel, easily outperforming any other video that I've done. So I'm really curious to see how this one will perform as well, even though it's literally been over a year since this game came out. Let me know if you'd like to see me do a video of me adding all the DLC to my tier list, such as Rayman and some other new sparks. I currently don't have the DLC, but if you all want to see that, just let me know in the comments, and I might even live stream it all. Once again, thank you all for watching, and as always, I hope you have an amazing rest of your morning, afternoon, evening, and night.